I'm going to have to start with you, David Urban. You helped get President Trump elected in the state of Pennsylvania. You still are close with them. Do you think that this move to really push Roy Moore in Alabama is a good one?
No, I don't. I would break with the president on this. I think the only thing worse than Doug Jones is Roy Moore. I think Roy Moore will be an anchor around the Republican brand. I think it'll be a disaster for the midterms, and the party will continue to try to move to separate itself. I think what he's alleged to have done, still obviously alleged to have done, will have to be proven in a court of law. But this is a political contest we're talking about. This is politics, and when you're explaining, you're losing. And so I think that this is a loser for the Republican Party. I think that the governor should have just postponed the election. It's well within her purview to do so, and could have solved it very easily.
So it would be better for the Republican Party to have Democrat Doug Jones in the Senate than Republican Roy Moore?
Look, I think that in the long run, Democrat Doug Jones would be Republican Doug Jones in the short run. I think just like there are very many, like look at Senator Manchin. Joe Manchin is what used to be called a blue dog Democrat, right, in this town. I think that Doug Jones from Alabama would become a very a likely vote for Republicans on many things before he switched parties.
I'm speechless. David Urban. Urban breaks with Trump. Well, you've made news already on this panel. What does the rest of us have to say? I think Trump will...
Wait, wouldn't it be news if you break with Trump?
Yeah,
no,
that would be huge.
We're never Trumpers together.
Yeah, exactly. I think Trump's decided he might as well just be for him. He's not going to get anything by distinguishing himself at this point. He's got his own problems on the similar front to the one that Roy Moore has. I wouldn't be surprised if they get tax reform through. What is it, Thursday they're likely to vote, maybe? It looks like they might get it through the Senate. I suspect Trump will then be inclined to go down to Alabama, campaign for Moore, but really campaign against Jones and say, look at this vote. It was 51-49 or whatever it's going to be. We cannot afford, if you want to kind of have conservative policies, you can't afford to have a Democrat like Doug Jones. It's not, I'm just saying, I think Trump has decided he's all in. He might as well try to pull it out.
But this is the type of tribalism that is the cancer of our country right now, because when Donald Trump says that Doug Jones is soft on crime, it's the antithesis to everything Doug Jones is. I mean, we're talking about somebody who prosecuted the individuals who bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church. I mean, we're talking about somebody who has a track record of actually being a law and order individual, who has that on his resume. Running against somebody who is, again, I use this word again, this SAT word this morning, the antithesis to all of that, because you have Roy Moore, who is accused of being a predator. We're not talking about someone who sexually harassed somebody, I mean, as wrong as that may be. We're talking about somebody who preyed on 14-year-old girls, allegedly. And so when you're talking about this type of predatory behavior and you put that up against Doug Jones, what is the actual debate here? And the fact that the president is putting his mantle behind that is even more troubling.
Well, I'm not certain.
He had a chance to say that any Republican won't do in this case, and to choose the morality that daughter, he has even his own daughter said that there's a special place in hell for anybody that preys on children. So Bakari's point is just really that. We're not even just talking about grown women here. We're talking about the accusation of a 14-year-old girl. And he makes light of it, saying that some of these allegations were 40 years ago. Well, newsflash for the president, when people are in pain like that, and women and men who've gone through that type of trauma, you can't put a timeline on when they reveal that trauma. But to say to the United States of America that he would rather have someone like Moore in there just for political expediency really is the wrong message to send.
And look, here's a question. I very much agree with that. Here's a question. So Trump's played his card. What do the Republicans do? What does Mitch McConnell do? I mean, Jeff Flake has said, I would vote for Doug Jones if I were in Alabama. Most of the other Republicans are, well, I'm separating myself.
Senator McConnell, he had that memo, that 4-page memo.
No, yeah, but they were also, we have to separate ourselves with like Governor Ivey to take us off the hook. You can't. There's going to be a choice. And I think the interesting question to ask all Republican senators later this week is, okay,
where do you stand?
It's a choice. Where do you stand? Are you willing to break? Are you willing to break?
Roy Moore.
Go ahead, let him finish.
That's it.
Roy Moore won a primary. Like, let's talk about the state of the Republican Party. I mean, Roy Moore beat a sitting United States senator. Luther Strange wasn't somebody who just came along. He was actually a United States senator. And Roy Moore just didn't become a problem. I mean, Roy Moore doesn't think that Muslims should be able to serve in the United States Congress. Roy Moore thinks that homosexuality should be illegalized.
Look, David Duke was one of the two finalists in Louisiana in 1990, I think it was, and he was the de facto Republican. He was the de facto Republican, and President Bush, the Republican president of the United States, said you should vote for the Democrat, even though it was Edward Edwards and he was corrupt and he had all kinds of problems. You cannot let David Duke be a Republican United States senator.
David, you hear what Bakari's doing here. Smart politics is making this about Roy Moore. The president is trying to play what he thinks is smart politics and making this about the Democrat. Bakari mentioned that among the other things that Doug Jones, we don't hear a lot about him because Roy Moore has been the story, but that he has done is successfully prosecuting two members of the KKK for the bombing, the infamous bombing back in the 60s. So is that dog gonna hunt?
No, listen, again, I think, as Bill said, look, I'm a supporter of the president 99.9% of the time. I break with him on this instance. I think that Judge Moore is not a great candidate here, to say the least. I think that the Republican Party would be better off having this, writ large here. You'd be better off having the Democrat come in. I would say that, again, just like Senator Manchin and other blue dog Democrats, they vote with the Republican Party a lot. There's an opportunity to kind of win that seat in a few years back, and it'll go back to the Republican Party. I think that it's going to be a big problem for the Republican brand, as Bill points out correctly. What do you do? What if you're Mitch McConnell and the other senators? He wins. Do you seat him? Do you not seat him? You have to take a stand. The party has to take a stand.
But would expelling him even matter?
This is a bigger problem, though, than just the Republican brand. We see all of these sexual exploitation, and that's being light here, that's coming out all across this country from all sectors. This is about the type of country we are. And for the voters in Alabama to separate partisanship from what is the right thing to do on behalf of girls and women in this country, that any grown 30-year-old man preying on 14-year-old girls, somebody who is not your physical, mental equal. What does that say about you? What is the measure of a man that would even prey or even approach a 14-year-old girl? And so this is not just about Moore. This is about a crisis in this country when it comes to sexual exploitation of girls and women that has been acceptable. So if we draw anything from this, is that this kind of behavior cannot be rewarded and it cannot stand. And we have to take a firm position, Republican or Democrat, and not make this about partisan politics. This is about women and girls and men and boys who have been sexually exploited in this country. That's acceptable.
We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you all for that discussion.